Imagine walking into your algebra class on a normal weekday afternoon. You walk in and you see an equation written up on the board with the words written solve for x written on top of it. Now, you go right on ahead and solve this equation with all the tools your teacher has provided to you the week prior. You see, this x transcends math. X is more than just a letter. X is a symbol, a variable that is meant to hold value. Life is one big algebraic equation, and we are all walking variables trying to find our own value and our own purpose on this earth. The letter X was and is still used by members of the Nation of Islam to replace their last names. This X symbolizes mystery, the unknown, and the pain of black history. But to me, as a Chicano of Central American descent, it symbolizes the journey that I was involuntarily thrust upon from the day of my birth. But X is also all of us, as we all strive to be comfortable within our own skin and around others. Growing up, I've always been conscious about race and color, particularly the obstacles that come along with it. But I will never forget that day in second grade when I saw President Obama be inaugurated to the presidency from a computer in my second grade classroom. And I remember that day feeling proud because, yeah, I knew race was an obstacle, but I knew that day that it was an obstacle that was meant to be overcome. And it was until seventh grade that I came across an biography about Malcolm X written by Walter Dean Myers. The biography was titled Malcolm X, By Any Means Necessary. And it was in this biography that I found a man and a community who took great pride in themselves and strived to better themselves and their own communities. I found a role model in Malcolm X. Malcolm X taught me to love reading more than I already did, to question everything, and to live for something wholeheartedly. And I began to apply this to my everyday life and in my journey to find a value to my own variable. Malcolm's evolution from a separatist to a loving, caring Muslim who believed in the equality of all races really struck a chord with me. It taught me that people, as human beings, transcend the labels that society imposes upon them. Growing up as a young brown scholar is a struggle, particularly if you're a scholar that loves history, because you never see yourself represented in much of the textbooks that you're given. And I remember in sophomore year learning about colonization. And I remember feeling a wide range of emotions. I felt pain. I felt hurt. I felt sad. I felt sad because I had never learned about my history, and the one time I learned about my history, my people were getting beat up. And it was at this time that I decided to hide this history behind me, to suppress these feelings. And I went on this sophomore year confused about my identity and what it really meant to be a brown scholar in America. And it was until my junior year that I was assigned to read Bless Me Ultima for my AP English class, my junior year, by Rudolfo Anaya. And I remember diving deep into the world of Chicanismo. And for those of you in the audience that don't know what Chicanismo is, it's a decision to reject assimilation and preserve one's cultural heritage. It's taking pride in oneself from a place of love and not from a place of hate. Therefore, Chicanismo is rooted in philosophy, not in nationality. So I began to dive deep. I began to learn about my history, read a lot of literature all that junior year. And I began to learn a lot about myself, began to take pride in my skin and feel comfortable in myself. So I decided to learn about indigenous history. I learned about various indigenous groups that existed in the Americas. And it was there that I learned that my history as a Chicano does not begin in colonization, but thousands of years before Christ. There's tons of history before colonization. And I was amazed at how the Maya and the Aztec wrote poems admiring the Toltec's artistry, and how the Maya and the Aztec were very well versed in astronomy and used all that knowledge to make complex calendars. It taught me that I, as a Chicano, come from a long line of scholars. And it shattered this misconception that I had that brown scholars like me did not belong in academic spaces. It was there that I learned that I rightfully belonged. And I was blessed to meet communities like the Inland Empire Brown Berets and UCR Mecha, who all encouraged me to learn more about myself and empower the community around me. I even went along to start a Mecha chapter right here in this school. To explain the acronyms of Mecha is a whole TED Talk within itself. But in simpler terms, it's a Spanish acronym for Movimiento Estudiantil Chicanx, which is for Chicano and Chicana de Aztlán. But in even simpler terms, it's a student movement, a student organization to encourage and empower students of color to pursue higher education and their cultural awareness. In my journey, I've learned that, yeah, colonization was evil. It relied on the oppression of indigenous groups and the atrocities of European imperialism. I take a look at my last name today and see that its origins lie in Portugal and Spain. And then I take a look at my first name and see that it's derived from Greek, meaning earthworker or farmer. So here I am, lost in North America with a European name. In a land once occupied by culturally rich indigenous groups, now occupied by concrete, capitalism, and confusion. I remember reading Corky Gonzalez's poem, I Am Joaquin, and reading the first couple verses that went, I am Joaquin, perdido en un mundo de confusión. I am Joaquin, lost in a world of confusion. And this really struck a chord deep in my soul, because all my life I felt lost in a world where I couldn't mentally place myself. And it was then and there that I decided to take more pride in myself, because I love my skin, I love myself, and I love my people. Chicanismo transcends race. It's an ideology. It's a means of becoming comfortable within one's own skin and being unapologetic about our identities. But above all, Chicanismo is a state of historical consciousness. It's about knowing one's history, acknowledging one's privilege, and using all that knowledge to empower ourselves and the communities around us. That is why today I consider myself a historically conscious Chicano of Central American descent. Not Latino, not Hispanic, a historically conscious Chicano. And in my journey of finding the value to my variable, I've learned that my history only defines me up to a certain extent. I am a product of power, I am a product of struggle, but most of all, I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. And in the famous words of Corky Gonzalez's poem, I Am Joaquin, I shall endure, I will endure, and so will we, as we all continue on this journey to find the value of our own variables, X. Thank you.